Everyone I know who starts a business goes through growing pains, and it can be hard in the beginning. There's lots of uncertainty. We don't really know what we're doing. We're constantly asking ourselves, is this the right thing? And so after 4 years in business, I put together a list of 7 business principles that had I known sooner, it would have sped up my success. And by the way, after putting them together, I realized that they're more life principles. And so if you have a heartbeat, if you are breathing, if you are alive, you might find some value. So let's dive in. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. My name is Ryan Rice. I am a full-time real estate investor. Last year we did 7 figures. I package all of this with the hopes that it helps you make some more money. After being part of a real estate community for many years now, I see common themes pop up with newer real estate investors, people who are just starting a business for the first time. A lot of them are intending to start this as a side hustle. Some of them are going all in. Either way, there are consistent themes that pop up, consistent difficulties. And I wanted to put together a list of principles that had I known sooner and earlier in my journey, they would have helped me get to where I am more quickly. And so here is that list. Number 1, most people misunderstand what it actually takes. And for me, I grossly misunderstood what it actually takes to be successful in business. And I want to explain to you what I mean. I had a 13-and-a-half-year career at a Fortune 30 company. And I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you, the role that I had was relatively high up. I had a director level role, which for a multi tens of billions of dollars of company, it was, I had a lot of responsibility. And I thought to myself, after having a multiple director level roles, many of which I was in charge of tens of millions of dollars business, and then I did it again and was in charge of another $50 million business, and then supported a team that was in charge of a $4 billion business. Had lots of direct reports. I thought to myself when leaving, how hard can it actually be? I have run my own business, essentially. I managed my own business is probably the best way to say it. And when I actually got into business, I understood that the skills that I had acquired in my previous job were helpful, but just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what it was that I actually needed to be successful. And the reason I'm sharing this is not to discourage you if you are in the beginning stages. It's not to say, oh, you shouldn't do it. But many times the reason why we quit is not because we aren't learning or we aren't progressing, but it's because we've set these arbitrary expectations of ourselves that if we don't achieve something within a certain amount of time, then it means that we should quit or go on to the next thing. And I think eliminating any sort of short-term expectation of outcome and just understanding that this is something that you are going to commit to, if you're starting a business, something that you are going to commit to for an extended period of time, knowing that any business who has any sort of success, it takes 5 to 10 years to build something special. Just understanding that can completely reframe how you think about things. And just so we're clear too, when I say most people don't understand what it actually takes, for me, what I didn't understand is what it actually takes to be exceptional. Now, everyone's goal isn't to be exceptional, right? And if you don't have that goal, then I think that's fine. But I think if you do have the goal that you want to be exceptional, then understanding the price you have to pay to be exceptional is important to understand. And by definition, if you are exceptional, it means you are the exception. It means that you may have to do things that other people regard you as being an outcast. You may have to do things that 99% of other people are not doing. But I think misunderstanding what it actually takes can be useful, even if you don't want to be exceptional, but it's important to define, what it is that you're actually looking to accomplish. So let me give you an example from the real estate community that I'm a part of. This past week, there was a guy who voiced displeasure with his progress in not getting his first real estate investment. And specifically, he was voicing frustration because he had talked to realtors and he hadn't yet got a property under contract or hadn't yet built a good connection with a good realtor. And I asked, well, how many realtors have you talked to? And he said, man, probably at least 5. And I said, 5? That's interesting. When I went into my first market, I had to talk to, I would say, at least 30. And then I went into my second market and I talked to at least another 30. And it took a long time, and it took a lot of people essentially saying that they didn't want to work with me to be able to find someone who actually was willing and wanted to do what it is that I needed. And in the first several months, it's safe to say that I spoke with more than 50, probably more than 60 realtors. And I finally found one who would actually work with me. And I think that's a common, someone starts something new and we have an expectation, and our expectation is, oh, well, I've talked to this many people. Why haven't I achieved a certain outcome? And you realize that the people ahead of you are actually doing, it's not that they're doing 2 and 3 times the volume of what you are doing that you feel you should have earned some sort of outcome with. It's actually, they might be doing 10x, 20x, maybe in some cases 100x the volume. And I'll give you another real life example on misunderstanding volume. When I first started, after a few months, I sent a note to the person who was in charge of, this mentorship group that I joined. And I was like, I have submitted 30 offers and I don't have anything in contract. And he was like, well, how many offers a week are you submitting? And I looked back and I was like, well, it's been a few months. I've submitted 30 offers, maybe 1 to 3 per week. And he said, Ryan, I'm making at least 10 to 15 offers a week. In some cases, I'm making multiple offers per day. And so I think just a lot of times what it actually takes isn't even fathomable to us in the beginning, because we think that the effort that we're putting in is the effort that is going to be necessary to achieve what it is that we want to achieve. And then we talk to someone who's steps ahead of us and we realize that our perception of volume is nowhere near what it is that the people who are ahead of you are actually doing. And so just understanding what it truly takes is helpful, because then I think if you do understand, then you can just simply make a decision on if you are willing to pay that price. And if you aren't, then fine, you can go do whatever it is that you want to do. But if you keep saying, well, I want this outcome, and then you understand what it actually takes, then you can say, okay, I am willing to pay that price and I'm willing to pay my dues. And I think had I understood that sooner, then it would have helped me navigate through hardship better in the beginning and likely would have sped up the volume that I actually ended up putting in. The second principle that I've learned is that the product of your work is not the money or a financial outcome that you're after. The product of your work is actually you. You are the product of what it is that you're working on in your business. And let me first explain what I mean, and then I'll explain why this was particularly useful for me. When I first started, I needed to learn the skill of underwriting a deal, how to find a deal, how to talk to people to raise money. And those were skills I put a lot of volume into, and the obvious desired outcome was to flip a house and make money flipping a house. Well, I bought some houses, I made some money, I lost some money. And as I continued forward and I wanted to grow my business, then there would become a new constraint, right? So, for example, I learned the tactical skills of how to flip, and then I flipped, and then I ran into some contractor issues. And then I learned more skills of how to deal with contractors. And then I ran into some significant contractor issues, which called significant operational issues in my business. And then I learned how to deal with a very high level of adversity and a significantly high level of uncertainty. And that gave me a priceless skill of how do you navigate through something with significant uncertainty. And now, as I have continued to progress and I have scaled my business and we're doing multiple deals per month, my new constraint is I need to get better at marketing. I need to figure out how to find better leads and get to them more quickly. And so what I've noticed is as I've done this, obviously the business has grown and the outcome has led to more financial output. But what is actually happening is all of the issues that have been created in my business are developing me as a person. I have had developed, my first set of sub skills and then my second set and then this next set of large skills. And the product of running a business is actually your personal development of your skill set. And I think that's particularly useful to understand because if we truly understand that concept, then it means whatever we're going through in our business, it's simply pointing to a skill that we are likely deficient in. And this is absent, of course, like if you're running a newspaper business in a market that's declining 25% year over year, well, you got to increase your business 25% each year just to stay afloat. But assuming that you are not in a significantly declining business, then whatever problem that you're going through in your business is just being highlighted by a skill deficiency. And the reason why it's particularly helpful and useful to understand that you are the product of your work, not the work itself, is because if you understand that frame, then it means everything can be solved. And I don't know that enough people truly understand that because what I see happen all the time is they'll get to some sort of adversity. And because of the adversity, they say, well, it just doesn't work. Or, well, this contractor sucks. Or whatever the case may be. But really what's actually happening is it's a complete reframe. For example, I don't know how to hire and run contractors. Or I don't know how to appropriately find deals that will work. And if you reframe it like that and you understand that your business you are the product of your business, then for me, it's that thought and that concept is just so freeing because it means that as long as something is physically possible, whatever we're going through is not limited by the laws of physics, then it means I have the ability to solve it. And it might be difficult. It might be a significant skill. And as you grow in business, you need a subset of skills in the beginning. And as you continue to grow larger in business, the skills that you need to learn become higher level meta skills and they become more difficult to learn. But understanding that you are the product of your business, the reason why it's freeing to me is because it means that I can always work on myself and I can always have room to get better. The third principle is the market doesn't care about your excuse. And that may sound harsh, but let me explain what I mean. When I was in my second year full-time in real estate, I had 20 renovations going at the same time. I did the very intelligent thing of giving them all to one contractor. And the operation completely fell apart, and he walked away with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then I had to hire new contractors and found out that all of the jobs he bid on, he underbid on, and so I had to pay more for each job with new contractors, and it was extremely difficult. And when I was going through that, I had to figure out, one, how to get through that issue, and then two, how to make more money than I've ever made in my life so that I can get through that issue. And there wasn't some business referee on the sidelines that saw my situation and was like, oh my gosh, Ryan, you're going through such a hard time. That's so unfair. I can't believe that contractor did that to you. Here is whatever solution so that you can get through it more easily. No, the market absolutely didn't give a shit. I still had to run marketing. I had to spend tens of thousands of dollars per month to acquire new customers. I had to work on my sales process to get those customers under contract. I then had to buy more houses while I was in significant distress with all these other, 20 houses going on. I had to hire new contractors, which were complete strangers. There was no sympathy. The market simply didn't care. And no matter, every single person I tell that story to, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that person did that to you. That's so unfair. And the market just doesn't care. Nobody cares about what has previously happened. The only thing that matters is, okay, what are you going to do about it? And I'll give a recent example of this in the real estate community I'm in that I think will highlight this as well. Several weeks back, there was a guy who was in the community for some time and he was frustrated because he hadn't achieved a specific result. And he would frequently verbalize how, because he was a trucker and he didn't have much time and he could only talk to realtors at a certain time of night, and because he was driving, he couldn't pull comps, etc., that was the reason why he wasn't seeing success. Well, this past week, wouldn't you know, there is another student who is a trucker. And how do I know he's a trucker? Because on the call, he's on Zoom and he's literally in his truck. And he's talking to me about how he is navigating these issues despite the fact that he's a trucker, despite the fact that he's on the road all the time. He's talking to me about how he actually lost his earnest money deposit on one deal, and this is what he learned, and this is what I'm continuing to do, even though I'm a trucker and I will not stop, so on and so forth. And I think so many people seem to cast blame to something as a reason why they're not achieving what it is that they want. And the reason they do that is because when we cast blame, it gives us permission. It makes other people around us say, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And it makes us feel better. And because we feel better, we are fine quitting. And I think the more people can understand that, okay, so you've been through some adversity, and now what? The only thing that matters is, what are you going to do about it? And I have found tremendous relief in saying that everything is my fault. Because if everything is my fault, then that means, and I am not placing external blame as to why I'm not achieving something in my life, then it's actually really freeing. Because guess what? If it's my fault, I can do something about it. And so many people like to cast blame on whatever adversity happened earlier in their life, because then they have a reason of why they can't achieve what they're going to achieve. And if you have caught yourself doing that, then that's normal. I think that's a normal human behavior. But if you can simply convince yourself that everything that is happening in your life right now is your fault, just like I did, then it gives you so much power to change what is going to happen about the future. And I think what's funny about this too is many people are quick to cast blame to why they can't do something. But that also means that when you can do something, you have to also cast external blame. Like, it's not, the reason for your success is not actually because of you, it's because of whatever external thing. And nobody does that, right? If you achieve something, oh yeah, like look what I've done. But if you are the reason for your success, that means you also are the reason for your failures. And again, it's not a make you feel bad thing. To me, that's a freeing thought that if everything that has occurred in my life is my fault, then I can take power over it and I can do something different in the future. Principle 4, what I mean by this is for you to have a business, you need to sell something and then you need to find people to sell it to. And even if you're flipping houses, so let's say that you're buying properties off the MLS and you want to learn how to raise money and flip them with other people's money and hire contractors. You might not think, well, that's not so much a sales and marketing skill, but you would be mistaken. The reason why that's a sales and marketing skill is because you have to convince realtors to want to work with you. You have to raise money, which means you have to influence sometimes strangers to give you tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to fund your real estate deal. That is the skill of influence. You have to find deals. That is the skill of marketing. And so no matter what it is, understanding that in the beginning, the skills that are required for you to do well are going to be surrounded in sales and marketing. And if you are having issues or you are not doing as well, figuring out which one of those do you need to work on and improve on, and then just ruthlessly going to improve that specific skill, then that is going to help you move faster. I believe the skill of influence, again, defined as sales, is one of the highest leverage skills that exist. And if you are trying to run a business and you don't have that skill, that's okay. There are plenty of people who have had successful businesses that didn't have that skill in the beginning. It just means that you have to work on that skill. Principle number 5 is the most important part of your business equation, and I might dare say of your life equation, is your spouse or your significant other. The further and further I get into business, the more I realize how true this actually is. And the reason is because this is the person who you spend the most time with. And if you have a goal and you really want it, but your vision for how you're going to achieve that goal does not align with your spouse's goal and or his or her vision for how they want to achieve their goal, there is going to be significant conflict. And it may get to the point where you have to choose either your goals or your spouse. And therefore, it may be useful for you that if you are hunting or getting into a relationship, to ensure that you're going to pick a spouse that shares vision, shares values with you so that you guys can head in the same direction. I was talking to a friend, and this friend is starting a new business venture, and we were talking about what it actually takes. And this friend had a corporate job and was used to making money. And I told him, I said, hey, you may have to sacrifice making the income that you're making in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to pay off because you're going to learn more skills, you're going to figure it out. And as a business owner, your ceiling is much higher. But in the short term, you may have to make some significant sacrifices. And I don't share that with you to posture. I share it with you just I would rather you be prepared. And he said to me, well, I don't think my wife would be okay with living a different lifestyle because we have been living this lifestyle for a while. And honestly, if she couldn't live the lifestyle that she's currently living because of how much I am currently making, then I actually don't think that she would be okay with that. And he kind of insinuated that like maybe she would get so upset that she would leave him. And so if on one end of the spectrum, you have a vision and you have goals and you come home to that situation every day, and on the other end of the spectrum, you come home to a spouse who is always supportive, who never is nagging you about the time that you're spending in your business, is never nagging you about, oh, can we just not worry about that today? it is going to drastically impact your desire to spend time in your business, your desire to spend time on your goals, and having someone who's growth oriented alongside you, who has a similar vision as you do, and who shares your values and how you want to get there is just going to make you accomplishing what it is that you want that much easier. The sixth principle is, if you don't understand the risk, don't act. I think this can be applied to a lot of different facets, but let me explain to you how it applied to me. Early on in my flipping career, I bought a lot of houses in a very short amount of time. And just by chance, all of the houses were very old. They were built before 1920. And in my mind, I had a very experienced contractor. There was so much upside that we would have the ability to make so much money. I didn't really fully understand the risk that I was getting myself into. I didn't understand that it's unlikely to do full gut renovations in a 1900 built house for under $100,000. I didn't understand that if all of them went wrong at the same time, that could create a significant cash flow issue. And I didn't understand that the probability that they could all go wrong at the same time might actually be greater than what I expected. I didn't understand that when doing additions, projects could be stuck in permitting for 6 months in jurisdictions. And so there were just a lot of details and a lot of facets that I just didn't understand the risk of. And it's because I didn't take the time to understand the risk, because I was so blinded by the upside. And because I didn't understand the risk, I took actions that, had I understood the risk, I probably wouldn't have taken, or I know I wouldn't have taken. And so then the question is, okay, Ryan, well, how do you know if you truly understand the risk? And I think the best answer to that question is you go find someone who has done exactly what it is that you want to do. And so if you want to buy, 10 houses at the same time and flip them all, then to truly understand that risk, you need to go find someone else who's flipped 10 houses all at the same time. And then literally, what is the worst possible scenario? And have a conversation with that individual. And so even I'll break it down as simply as if you just want to flip one house. Well, that's good. You should flip a house, but you should also make sure that you should talk to someone about who has flipped a house and ask them, what is the worst case possible scenario in this situation, so that I can fully understand what my risk is. And if you don't know the answer in brutal detail to the question of what is the worst case possible scenario, then you don't understand the risk. And our highest leverage activities are when we can take less risk with more upside. And the more that you're able to evaluate specific deals in which your risk is lower, but your upside is higher, those are the deals that we want to do. The deals we want to avoid are the ones where the downside is significant and the upside is, oh yeah, that'd be nice. Right? But in order to make those decisions, you have to truly understand what your risk is. And so make sure that you are seeking out people that have done what it is that you want to do. And you ask them, what is the worst case possible scenario? Make sure you're crystal clear on it. The last and final principle number 7, is it's important to determine who you should listen to. Here's what I mean by this. Growing up, I heard all the time phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees. How much money do you really need to make past a couple $100,000 a year? And what I didn't realize at the time, that the things that I wanted were far in excess of what the people who was giving me that advice had achieved. And understanding the frame that if I want something, I should probably only listen to people who have achieved that thing, about that specific thing. Right? And so if my goal is to, for example, have a beautiful, connected, strong relationship, and I'm talking to someone who has made a shit ton of money but has never had a great relationship, well, then I could listen to that person about how to make money, but not about a relationship. And I think the fallacy that we fall into is there are people growing up who we know care about us, and we listen to them about everything because we just simply trust them. And it's important to delineate between deciding what specific advice we are going to listen to from the people who are around us. And simply put, I have found the most utility in, if my goal is to make money, then if I'm listening to money advice, I should probably only listen to advice from people who are making the amount of money that I want to make. If I want to make money and there is someone who is making less money than I want to make, why would I think that that advice would provide utility to me? And this may sound so simple, but I think it's such an important facet of life, is growing up and understanding, how do I decide who to listen to and why I should listen to them, and what advice I should take from specific people. And I think what that means is there might be, 5 different categories of your life that you're working on or that you want to improve. And that might mean that there are 5 different people that you may need to go seek advice from, because not all of them have achieved all 5 of those things. But there is someone out there who's made the money that you're making. There is someone out there who has the relationship that you want. There is someone out there who has the body, who has the fitness that you want. And understanding that you can listen to 3 different people for those things, and that you probably should listen to 3 different people unless you find one person who has all 3. That is, it sounds so simple, but it's such an important concept to delineate. And so if you want to make more money and you are listening to people who are not making the amount of money that you are making, and that might not mean, like, if you're making $50,000, but you want to make $500,000 and you're listening to someone who is making $100,000, then they are making more than you, but they are not making what you want to make. And so you shouldn't listen to them. And understanding that, I think, is really important, right? If you want to be a professional bodybuilder and you're listening, you're just getting started, and there's someone who's going to the gym who's pretty fit, listening to them might be useful, but what's going to be more useful is finding the jacked bodybuilder and, having them tell you what it is that you need to do. So I think crystallizing and understanding who you should listen to is really important. So there you have it. These are 7 business principles that have served me. I hope it's been useful for you. Just to bring it all back, most people don't understand what it actually takes. The product of your work is you, not money. The market doesn't care about your excuse. Every business is sales and marketing. The most important part of your business or life equation is your spouse or significant other. If you don't understand the risk, don't act, and determine who you should listen to. So I hope you guys got some value out of that. If you did, if you wouldn't mind taking the time to send it to a friend, share on your Instagram story. It's the only way this podcast grows. I am working hard to make sure that I'm providing useful information for you so that you can apply it to your own life. And I hope it is. And one way that you can tell me that it is if you share it. And if it's not useful, then don't share it. And I will I'll work hard to make it better regardless, but I will work especially hard if you think it sucks. So I appreciate you guys listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.